recording, yeah?
Yeah, it's recording.
Put your shoe down.
No, shoes off.
Actually, I'm going to take my shoes off as well.
Yeah, okay.
Gavin, you keep yours
I
on.
like
Your
to
feet are
maintain.
fucking
I like to
bogging.
stay professional. I like to stay professional when I'm doing this
Gavin,
thing.
we'll have to all evacuate soon. The microphones are probably picking up.
Yeah, it's like, what's that weird hum?
Colonels and Cornheads, welcome back to the Popcorn Head podcast with your host, Popcorn Head. Thank you for coming back, guys. We love it. We've broken the seal with episode 1 and we are pumped. We are ready to rip. Joining me again today in the pod are my esteemed co-producers and guests, Colonels and Cornheads. Welcome, Messrs. Tom Brady and Rory Moore. Welcome back, guys.
How's it going, Gavlar?
Messrs. Brady and Moore sounds like a Dickensian legal firm. Like two guys who use like manipulation and deceit to climb the social ladder.
You don't get messers anymore. What's happened to messers?
Yeah, but like
you
guys,
don't get Esquire very often either.
but I could just see you guys like exploiting and corrupting children as you like climb the social ladder. You know, very Dickensian. You know?
Good Lord, don't tell them too much about our private lives, Gavin.
So this week we're actually staying in the year 2000. I swear next time we'll do a different decade at the very least, but I could not wait to do an episode on this week's film. When I started developing the podcast, I knew I wouldn't be able to hold off for this long. It was like being on a long distance bus journey with no stops or toilet and your bladder is about to explode. Or like if you go to a concert and you want a great spot, maybe you want to be like front row at the barrier, you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. I haven't been to a concert in years. Like the last concert I went to was Freddie Gibbs and Madlib in Amsterdam, and that was Halloween 2019. You were there, Tom.
Yeah,
class.
ruled.
Like I've been going to like local comedy podcasts, things like that in Belfast, like no real concerts, and I love a concert. I've seen so many people live. What was the first concert you guys attended?
Probably Coldplay with my mum. It was great fun,
Oh, wow.
obviously. But the first one I really...
You're cool.
I know. I've actually been to see Coldplay again after that, so I have. But
Of your own volition?
Of my own volition. And for the less said, the better. But...
Moving swiftly on.
But the first one I really remember going to and enjoying when I was a wee bit older was Kanye West when he came over to Belfast on his
aye.
Love Lockdown tour, and it was absolutely it was great. It was great, but at the same time it was awful. You
He
know,
started
it was,
to lose it at that stage, or
no, I think he still had all his mental capacities, and but it was. In the Odyssey, you know, it wasn't like he performed at Glastonbury a few years later, which was unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe whenever I was a kid, my dad took me to see the Beatles or like Australian Pink Floyd and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I've been to others. I've definitely seen Steve Earle whenever I was younger as well.
Right.
But those were all concerts that I was sort of dragged along to, slightly unwillingly. Probably the first one that I really enjoyed that I went to myself of my own free will was Metallica in Dublin. And they had like, I think you were there as well. They had 5 warm-up acts. It was like a mini festival.
Yeah, speaking of being dragged along reluctantly, the first concert I ever attended, it was one of the strangest lineups of all time. It was at Ravenhill, the old Ulster rugby ground, and it consisted of Mel C supporting Status Quo, who were supporting Meatloaf. And my dad brought me, and like I think we were literally only there so he could see the Quo, and Meatloaf was just like an afterthought, you know. It was so
That's
weird.
hilarious.
As we arrived near the end of Mel C's set, and she's up there, you know, I turn to you like a flower leaf, you know, all that, but like it was crazy. Just going from that, then the Quo, and then Meatloaf was class. Unbelievable.
He said he just screamed fuck for...
He did. He screamed fuck multiple times, which I found very strange. yeah. But yeah, no.
That's getting your money's worth.
Yeah, but like after like a 5-year concert hiatus, I will be seeing the greatest live act on the planet, Metallica, this summer in Madrid at the Estadio Metropolitano. Yeah!
Are you sure you've got the right year?
Yes, so I should probably tell the listeners I am, however, a dickhead when it comes to this topic because they announced this tour. It was late 2022, and I was so excited. I'd kind of been waiting for Metallica to hit the road again from a big comeback gig post-COVID, and they announced the European dates, doing that in the round setup. You know, we saw in Belfast where it's the stage in the middle of the arena, so you're gathered around that, and it gets you really close to the action, and like the
That
band
was really
move
good.
around and all.
Yeah.
So you can have each member of the band in front of you at different points. And it was sick.
Except for Lars.
But yeah, they
Is wee Lars going to be able to keep up with the pace these days?
Oh, you rarely can. But yeah, they announced the tour dates. I had a looked at maybe doing like Paris, but I've been to Paris before and the less said the better, to be honest. Especially that bastard airport. Oh my god.
Oh, it's the worst airport I've
The
ever
biggest
been
mug
to.
off to Charles de Gaulle is naming that piece of shit in his honour. But yeah, I saw they were doing Madrid and I thought, oh, that'd be lovely. You know, it's in July. It's actually on the 12th of July. But, get some sun, explore a new city. Awesome. Couldn't wait. Got my tickets, standing, so excited. And after about a week, I thought, I'll book my flights, get that sorted, get ahead of myself. So I went to double check the dates for booking and it was in 2024. And this was 2 Christmases ago. Every other city I'd looked at as a potential destination was last year. But dickhead here had to wait another bastard year. I'm over it now, but when I found out I was fuming because usually I'm so organised and on point when it comes to booking and planning things like that. But yeah, to bring us back to the topic of piss, I saw on Metallica's socials and posters, they had quite a few support acts on at their concerts, and that from the time doors open until they finish, you're talking like 6 hours. Now, do I want to be front row at the barrier for the concert? Yes. Do I want to have a few drinks at this concert? Yes. Does my bladder need to erupt the second alcohol touches my lips? Yes. So I got to thinking, how am I going to deal with this? And then it came to me. I was out one night at the pub in the toilets at the men's urinals where I usually hang around after a few pints. And I realised that when I go to piss at urinals and there's people around me, I get stage fright. I can't do it.
Oh, performance anxiety.
No matter how bad I need to piss, nothing comes out. So it got me thinking, what if at the gig I get my drinks, get front row, and just get my dick out? And just hang out for the 6-hour duration. Maybe that will solve my problems. We'll see how things pan out anyway.
What's a place called in Spain? Garda Civil.
Yeah.
They'll knock the fucking.
Yeah, they're pretty brutal. Yeah. Where the fuck was I going with this? I have film podcast. Sorry, yeah. So as I was saying, I could not wait to do this episode. This week's film deserves way more attention and recognition than it has. It is my personal favourite British gangster film ever made, with one of the most electrifying, terrifying and hilarious performances you will ever see in your life. Colonels and Cornheads, this is Sexy Beast.
Good, go. Storm, perfect storm. This is madness. Cowboy gun. Fucking right, it was a cowboy gun. Problem? Fucking problem.
No, mate, no.
I'm Lee Marvin.
Are you definitely retired?
Spain, eh?
Depends on the usual bun flutteries.
Good boys. Gotta be good boys.
I fully intend to. Now eat your sausage.
Oi, give it some.
Sexy Beast, it was the feature film directorial debut for the elusive British auteur Jonathan Glazer. Prior to making Sexy Beast, Glazer, he had a career directing theatre, making trailers, directing short films, as well as commercials for brands like Guinness and Stella Artois. He also directed a number of music videos. The most notable that stuck out for me was Virtual Insanity by Jamiroquai.
That's the
The
inside the cheese
iconic
grater.
music video.
Yeah.
It's him in the white room, JK, just dancing. I think it's while the floor moves around.
Oh yes, yes.
It's awesome. I love that. It's a banger.
That's a cool music video, but I've never really liked Jamiroquai that much.
Right, we cannot be friends. But yes, Glazer had this desire and passion for filmmaking from a young age. His father was a cinephile. Let's make sure we get that right. With whom a young
Not
Glazer.
make that mistake.
Yeah, him and his dad, they would frequently watch the works of the legendary David Lean, best known for Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia. So he was no stranger to the power of cinema. Now, Sexy Beast, it follows retired British criminal Gal Dove living the Brits abroad expat dream in Spain with his wife Dee Dee. But shit hits the fan when he's visited by a ghost from his past in the form of the psychotic Don Logan, who demands that Gal participate in one last job. Does the plot sound familiar?
Yes, but I don't know what from.
Yeah, it sounds familiar from lots of things, but recently GTA 5.
Yeah, Michael and Trevor.
I don't remember Trevor coming and asking him to do another job, but maybe I'm wrong.
But it's
I
not
remember
all, like,
Michael's be coming in for one last
coming
job,
back to
and
do
Michael's
another job, that kind of dynamic,
okay.
and then Trevor's the unhinged psychopath.
I know.
And then Michael has sort of retired. He's moved on to like a different life. It's the past.
Living it up in Hollywood.
Yeah.
The tug of war between the present and the past. No, I thought that was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really good. Didn't you say it was based on, like, GTA 5 was like loosely based on
Yeah,
Sexy
the
Beast?
plot was. Yeah.
It's very cool. See, the producers of Rockstar know what they're doing. They know good cinema when they see it.
For sure, what was had Vice City, and it was
It was sort of based on like Miami Vice and Scarface and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then San Andreas played on things like Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
But anyways, with Sexy Beast, the writers, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Louis Malle and David Skinto, along with Jonathan Glazer, have delivered a product that not only subverts the form of a gangster film, we're presented with it like a vicious psychological thriller. You could go as far as calling it a psychological horror in some aspects.
Yeah. I really like how it subverts the gangster genre, because like we're so used to the tropes of like the strong silent type.
The strong silent type.
Yeah, or like the like really competent gangster, or like the crazy guy, whatever.
Being all about the heist, like Lock, Stock, and like Snatch.
Yeah.
Basically any Guy Ritchie film.
Yeah, I mean
every Guy Ritchie film, sorry.
They're all pretty derivative. Yeah, like it completely, instead of having these strong, tough guys who are like, never feel fear or pain or anything like that, it completely upends that. And you get these like insecure, like gals kind of like soft and like
his wee moments of DD. Really soft, not very Winston at all.
Yeah. I think it really shows his acting range. It shows how good of an actor he is.
Big time.
And, I love, even at from the very start, whenever the boulder falls into the pool and just misses him, the way Glazer nails and the cast nail the kind of cadence, it's so believable whenever he's like, Boulder, fucking Boulder, I was this close, DD. You're like,
Almost got killed, eh? I was that close to getting killed. Serious? You nearly come over and squashed us, buddy.
That bit is incredible. It's just perfect. You believe it.
I've actually read really pathetic reviews from like people who aren't from Britain giving the film a bad review because they don't understand what they're saying. It's like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, is it?
I assume they were American.
I didn't want to say it outright. But,
Well, I mean, that's why Netflix has subtitles on British films.
The film, it focuses on character rather than events. As we said, the actual heist itself is merely an afterthought. The centerpiece of the film is the conflict between Gal Dove and Don Logan, which for me remains one of the greatest on-screen conflicts. And the plot is so simple. Just man wants another man to do a job. The other man doesn't want to do it. The power lies in that unbearable tension between the characters and how absurdly funny the dynamics are. It's also interesting how, more often than not in films like this, as we said, the retired criminal is often yearning for a return to the former life.
Yeah.
They can't wait to get back into the fold, but not for Gal Dove. He's a pig in shit.
Yeah.
He's more than happy to just tan, drink, eat, party, dance, living that same predictable routine over and over. And that's a big thing, I think, with going to Spain on a holiday. And
I also think the way Gal has been in this lifestyle of being a gangster for forever, and he's been beneath a boss, he's always been working for somebody. And now even in marriage, with the way he is with DD seems to be almost playing that role of his mob boss above him. Everything he's doing, he's making sure he's not upsetting her. Everything's about
walking on eggshells.
Exactly. So
See, I don't see it that way at all. I don't see it that way at all.
No.
The way I see it is that he's like completely happy. He doesn't want her to leave him because he doesn't want to damage this life that he's built for himself. That's why he's like so afraid of doing the job. Or later on, whenever like Teddy is on screen with him, you can feel his anxiety to get away and get back to his comfortable life. Because it's like this, as you said, like ghost from the past, this like danger from the past is like intruding on his idyllic life.
Yeah.
It's upset everything.
Could you live that kind of life? Would that be for you?
I can live that life, but
I
not,
know
not
you'd
the,
like it,
not
Rory.
the gangster side of things.
No, I know
but
you would
see
enjoy that
the tannin.
mundanity of just same day, every day.
I'd pick up smoking again. It would be great.
Yeah, if someone transferred like £2 million into my bank account and I was able to just live in a pool in Spain, I'd be very happy.
It's those places you go to in Spain, and it's like you might as well be in Britain, but it's 30 degrees. You know, like
Fry up.
yeah.
Get your Sunday roast.
Actual foreigners you see are the Senegalese lads on the beach who are like they're peddling their sweet
like
trinkets and wares.
Or as in this film, the servants.
Yeah.
That's the only you only see people who work for him or who are serving him a meal at a restaurant.
I went to Spain with my parents a couple of years ago, and I befriended all the Senegalese guys on the beach. They were the best crack because everybody else is just the same. Like they're all H.
Yeah.
But these lads were hilarious. I bought them all ice creams and things.
I could see your parents living out there. Like,
man, I love it.
My mum moved to Spain for a while herself, and she loved it. She was in the sun all day, just chilling. I could do it in a heartbeat.
Another thing about the combination of H and Gal, they're kind of like the two versions of Brit in Spain. You got Gal the lobster and H the kind of like lizard who's like completely turned himself to leather.
The steak was enormous. Size of it couldn't finish it. And even else, funny. The waiter. Oh yeah, very attentive.
That's it. So back to actually making the film. So filming, it took place in the summer of '99 with famous hard man Ray Winston in the lead as Gal Dove. This was the film that it brought Ray Winston international fame and attention. And it actually turns out that Ray was offered the role of Don Logan, but he wanted to play Gal. And considering his preparation to portray the character, I can see why. Yeah,
from all reports, he went out 2 weeks early to work on his tan, so he spent all his days lying in the sun on the beach in a wee Spanish village, eating pasta, trying to put on the pounds. He said it was what he'd call himself a normal Friday, and it's the best rehearsal time he's ever had.
He just drank vodka and ate pasta, and he fucking got paid for it as well. So
it sounds
an incredible 2 weeks of work.
Now, for the role of Don Logan, aside from Ray, Anthony Hopkins was actually also considered for the part, which in an alternate universe I would love to see out of curiosity. Just in my head, I'm just imagining Captain William Bligh of the Bounty just storming into the villa, William, not sir, not Captain, William.
Similarly scary, but not the same way.
Around the horn is the easiest way, the better way, and that is how we will go. You frightened to go around the horn, Mr. Christian?
Are you going to do the job, sir?
Hopkins is actually so impressed by the end result that he sent a letter to Kingsley himself praising his performance. He thought it was
Mahatma Gandhi. Ray Winston, he's talked about how taken aback they were with the casting of Kingsley, who, while a phenomenal actor, he'd not been known for playing vicious sociopaths, rather Gandhi and like Ajax Stern and Schindler's List, Schindler's accountant, so I guess they had the right to be skeptical of what kind of man was going to arrive on set. So filming was underway and everyone was waiting for Ben to arrive. He was finishing off a film in America or something and he was arriving late. So Ray Winston, he's waiting for Gandhi to show up, as he put it. And
can we pause a moment and talk about how wild it is they cast him as Gandhi?
Oh yeah,
just our beer, would you?
Oh, here, I'll get you one in a second.
Here,
I don't think there's any
pause. We'll go back.
Yeah, okay.
Are you having?
I'm not sure yet.
Well, they've got mussels. You like mussels? Have the mussels.
No, I think I'm going to have this chicken thing.
Chicken thing? What chicken thing? I didn't see that, was it?
Dear we poor.
Dear darling.
Do your little time.
What else is there? So filming was underway and everyone was waiting for Ben to arrive. He was finishing off a film in America and arriving late. So Ray Winston, he's waiting for Gandhi to show up, as he puts it. And it sort of reflects the plot of the film where, they're awaiting the arrival of Don Logan, not knowing what to expect. And Ray tells this great story about when they first met Ben Kingsley during filming. Ben was arriving, so they had this big party for him on the beach. And Ben Kingsley arrives as Don Logan.
In character.
In character. He's doing the accent and all.
How's your brother doing?
Malky, he's all right, I suppose. He's Malky, and he don't know, you'd have to ask him.
How was the flight, Don? Was all right.
And Ray doesn't go into too much detail, but he reveals that Ben actually got on his nerves so much that when he had a chance, he slipped away, climbed out a window, and fucked off. But Jonathan Glazer, he's talked about casting Kingsley as Don Logan. He describes how he was able to develop the character through his limitations. You know, Ben Kingsley's not an imposing figure, but his size is described as being part of his power in like a Napoleonic kind of way, you know.
Yeah.
He's tiny. I've got him, but see him height, build is Kingsley.
Small man syndrome.
So rather than having a big tough guy, Glazer opted for containment, someone who would be able to compete with Ray Winston on a much more primal level, still and contained, like a coiled spring in a box that could just take your eye out in any second.
Yeah.
Scary looking, like it's scary.
Yeah. I think they played it perfectly, because his danger doesn't come from the fact that he's like big or imposing or strong or anything like that. Like, I'm sure he is strong, whatever, but like it's more that he's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he's unpredictable. He's like a rabid dog.
It's the lack of facial expression. He doesn't show anything at any point. It's a constant scowl. It's never you never see him smile.
Yeah, he sort of like grimaces a couple of times in place of a smile.
He doesn't react to anything anybody says. He still just sort of like hard stare, no matter what, and it's really, really unsettling.
Yeah. How was the plane? It was all right.
So, when were you guys sort of like, when were you first aware of the film, or like when did you first see it, and what did you think of it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think we probably watched it together at some point.
I imagine so.
I've seen it a bunch of times now because it's become one of my favorite films.
I thought I'd seen it, but and I assumed it's one I'd seen a few boys. But looking at it a few weeks ago when you had announced that it was going to be one of the ones you're looking at, I'd never seen it, so I've now watched it twice. But it was such a good film. Just it went over me.
Yeah, there's that's happened with so many people. I've shown it to people, like whenever I was over in London staying with one of my friends. I was like, you need to see this movie if you haven't seen it. And he was like, he told me afterwards, he was like, oh, this is gonna suck. You know, like he just didn't think it looked good.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, he was like, holy shit, that was class. That was not what I was expecting at all.
I was first drawn to Sexy Beast. It was thanks to a lesser known film starring Ray Winston called Nil by Mouth, which was actually Gary Oldman's debut as a director and writer.
Huh, I didn't know.
Before I get into this, Rory, how many fucks and cunts are there in Sexy Beast?
I think it was 115 fucks and 21 cunts.
Nice.
Should have done that the other way around.
Interesting trivia about Nil by Mouth. It features the word cunt more than any other film in history, 82 times. It also features 428 fucks, which is the highest average number of fucks per minute of running time. It's an amazing film.
That's nearly.
It obliterates it.
It's nearly a cunt a minute.
Yeah, like, it's an amazing film. It's so bleak. It's
More
so
than any man
hard.
to get through.
It's so hard to watch. It's gritty as hell, and Ray Winston is fucking phenomenal in it, alongside Kathy Burke in a shocking turn, best known for her comedic work with Harry Enfield. She plays his abused wife.
Yeah.
Have you seen Nil by Mouth?
No.
Oh, you need to watch it.
But I know I know who Kathy Burke is.
Yeah. See, having been blown away by Ray Winston and Nil by Mouth, I was on the hunt. I was on the lookout for any other work he was in. And I remember one night, I was in bed. I must have been 14 or 15, flicking about Freeview, and I spotted on Film 4 this film coming on called Sexy Beast, and I was like, ooh, what's this all about? Looked at the info for it, and I saw there was Ray Winston. I thought, brilliant, let's check it out. And I love revisiting this film. Prior to researching for this pod, the last time I actually watched it was with you, Tom, in a hotel room in Hanoi, Vietnam, with Max.
I don't remember that.
Like, we could barely breathe for laughing. Like, you could barely pay attention to the film. The first time I saw it, I barely laughed. I was so shocked, but once I got over that shock and knew what I was in for, it became such a joy. It's just a film to just revel in, just sit back and let that surreal, almost dreamlike quality lure you in before Don Logan reaches out of the screen and grips you by the neck, refusing to let go until he's done verbally tearing you to pieces with these like poetic insults.
Yeah, we'll come on to his insults later on, but they're incredible.
Yeah.
But like, did you notice? The film almost has a structure like before Don Dawn and after Dawn.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Dawn's Jesus.
Yeah, it's
You
a
got,
perfect three-act structure. Yeah,
before Dawn,
Hey.
Dawn, and Anno Dawn. But as you said, it's like dreamlike and idyllic, and they're all having a lovely time at the start, and then you get Dawn coming in, and everything changes. The cuts are quicker. You get this like, oh no, it's okay.
What happened?
Screensaver.
Is it the street pipes?
Right.
I don't know.
Right, so I want to just talk a wee bit about Jonathan Glazer's style as a filmmaker. So Jonathan Glazer, he's made 4 feature films, with his most recent, The Zone of Interest, making its debut at Cannes last year, winning several top awards and being greeted with high acclaim. I watched it last week and it was an experience, to say the least. It's a very interesting film, but a very difficult film to recommend. And we will talk about it in detail. We will definitely do an episode on it.
I would recommend it, but I would also warn you that like
It's not a war film.
you should know what you're getting into. It's not a war film. It's almost like a psychological horror film. It follows the family of Rudolf Hoss,
Yeah.
the commandant of Auschwitz, and it's following his family and how they're presented as this like prototypical German settler family in Poland. In World War II, there's like the whole Lebensraum thing, like
living
space.
room.
Yeah, so like they send all these settlers to put down roots in Poland and east of Germany. And you get this horrible contrast. Like you're always aware of what's happening over the wall next door. There's constant screams and gunshots and stuff.
But you're not seeing it.
But you see nothing. They don't show any of it, which I think is a really brave
They're
choice.
just living out this mundane family life. Like
Yeah.
at night time, he's turning off all the light switches in the
Ignoring
house,
it.
locking all the doors.
Yeah, and that's indicative of how they were
banality.
ignoring it.
The banality of evil.
How the German people were ignoring it. Yeah.
But we will come back and do
cool.
an
Yeah,
episode.
that's
I don't
cool.
want to go too into it because it warrants an episode in
Yeah,
itself.
it's such a good film.
Yeah.
But you should be aware that what you're going into
Yeah.
is going to be a
It is
fucking
not
intense
a war
experience.
film.
Yeah, exactly. Put it this way: as we were coming out of the cinema, the end credits have this. They don't raise the lights in the building, or in the room. So you're walking out in the dark. Everyone's like herding out in the dark, and you have this horrific sound design that makes you feel like you're being sent to the gas chamber as you're leaving the cinema. So like, be aware of that. If you're obviously like, it's not going to be in the cinema anymore whenever this comes out, but be aware that that's kind of the experience that they're going for. Like that's the final experience you have if you see it in the cinema.
Yeah.
So it's intense. It's not fun, but it's really, really, really interesting and an incredible study in human psychology, I would say. And like, I learned things that I didn't know about the Nazis. So
Yeah, but that's it. Like Glazer, he's the perfect example of an auteur, like someone who takes great care in what he does. He is a visionary who has maintained a low profile. He won't just make films for the sake of it. His work's incredibly distinct. None of the works in his filmography even remotely resemble each other. Yeah. The only concept I could sort of identify as a recurring theme is that of people's lives being disturbed by some kind of alien presence going on, Like his previous film, Under the Skin, which came out in 2013, it's a film we'll definitely do an episode on because it's marvellous. Daring and bold with some really interesting filming techniques. They had Scarlett Johansson drive around a van in Scotland trying to pick up men with hidden cameras in the van.
So they're all real people, right?
Yeah. I think like when it goes in, I don't want to go into too much of the film, but obviously they will take certain measures, but there are scenes shot where she's just speaking to random men on the street. And it made me wonder, who would you guys want to be driving that van when they pulled up?
I mean,
to kidnap you?
No, like a Scarlett Johansson type,
So like, in this scenario, is it going to be like a praying
You're being
mantis where
propositioned.
you're
being propositioned.
You might have sex with them, but they're also going to eat your head.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone in mind?
Well, when you put it like that,
I would have to
don't
go.
know.
I would have to go with Famke Janssen in Goldeneye.
I don't know who
Xenia
that
on the
is.
top.
Oh,
She don't
Jesus
wanna
Christ.
bite him.
She's terrifying. What are you talking about?
Just get marked by thighs. I'll be that guy. The admiral. She goes, who's like, Xenia, I can't breathe. Ah! You know, and they find him. He's just like this. Oh,
I don't know, like Julia Fox, maybe. I'm not sure.
But anyway, back to Glazer. So Ray Winston, he put it best when he talked about working with Glazer. He praised working with new filmmakers who don't know the rules, so they break them. But watching this film, it's clear that Glazer is in complete control of the subject matter. The absurdities and ridiculousness of the film meant it could have easily turned into like a tonal mess. Instead, it's hilarious, it's surreal, thrilling, and it's lean. In the first act, we're in Spain with Gal Dove, his wife Dee Dee, their friend H, and his wife Jackie. And Glazer talks about how he shot the first act as if Ray Winston's character had shot it, which we'll come back to when we're talking about sort of the key scenes. In the second act, whenever Don Logan shows up, it becomes quite architectural and abrasive. His presence just sucks all the love and warmth away from the film. And in the final act, when it moves to England, even the film itself feels like it's in a rush to get back to sunny Spain and away from that grim urban industrial. It's almost like future 70s London. Like it looks like how they imagined the future looked in like 70s films. You know, that grimy kind of industrialization, you know.
I've never seen wetter rain in London. That rain is coming down like remember Forrest Gump when he goes through all the different types of rain?
Oh yeah.
That's the
sideways rain.
The wettest rain.
But then when Gal's in London, he meets with the man who masterminded the heist, Teddy Bass, who's played by the brilliant Ian McShane, who's also a very interesting character. He's sort of overlooked in a lot of ways.
Is he getting bummed in that scene? Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
He lets the chairman of Imperial Emblat sodomize him, so that he can get access to their vault, basically.
It must be a bit into sodomy as well.
But I think that bit's so funny where the chairman's like staring at the back of his head and he's like, "What are you doing? Staring at the back of your head? Stare at the back of your own fucking head."
That's it. He's so mysterious. You know, he's dressed in all black. He's silent. Like I think his character implies a deeper evil. It's like if Ben Kingsley is the Witch King of Angmar, Teddy Bass is Sauron.
Yeah.
There's
I
so
love
much.
the way they're not on camera together at any point, though. You never get those two, Ben Kingsley and Ian McShane.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ian McShane.
They're not in the scene together, but they're so connected.
We should mention Ian McShane is Al Swearingen from Deadwood.
Yes. Al swears a lot.
Yeah.
You know what on our way means, huh?
No.
On our way means they're getting drunk and blown in some saloon in Cheyenne and running their mouths about this big fucking filibustering expedition they've been commissioned for under command of the famous Hawkeye. The laziest, most shit-faced, whoremongering cocksucker to ever piss my money away.
He's the best character.
He is by far the best character. Like, it wouldn't
That
work
main
without
guy,
him.
we just called him Deadwood. Did not like him.
Timothy
I've seen
Oliphant.
him-
I
I've
quite
seen
like Timothy
him
Oliphant,
lots
but
of
not
things.
so
but
much
I
in
do
that.
love is it the Doctor in Deadwood?
Yes.
It's the actor
Oh
who
my
plays.
God.
It's the actor who plays Cream of Worms.
Yes.
Oh,
He's
Brad Dourif.
incredible. Yeah.
He was Billy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know,
Oh,
Yes.
one of the
he's a
playing
phenomenal
cards.
He's
actor.
incredible.
Phenomenal actor. He doesn't get enough praise because he's class. But that's the film. It deserves the attention granted to Guy Ritchie gangster films. You know, in my opinion, this is far superior. I've never really been able to get into Guy Ritchie films. Like, I just can't connect with them at all, or like care about the characters. Like, I feel the characters often they just feel like caricatures.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's too superficial, I think, and it's
all the characters feel like in the scene in Sexy Beast when they're celebrating after the heist. All those random wee gangsters, they feel like Guy Ritchie gangsters.
Yes.
All those.
Also, I love. I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but maybe this is the time to talk about it. Where he's sitting at the table, and he obviously the last thing he wants to do is be there, and it's kind of like a roulette wheel spinning the camera around all these like hysterically laughing.
They're laughing like hyenas.
Yeah.
It's like a scene of Goodfellas.
It's like it
It's
is
even
like
lit
Goodfellas.
like Goodfellas,
Yeah.
like the reds and all coming through
It's
the bar.
it's all like the forced laughter.
That forced laugh in Goodfellas is the best film
Oh
I've
my
seen.
God.
That Ray
Oh, Ray
Liotta
Liotta.
laugh.
Yeah, but back to Sexy Beast. it has an excellent score by this guy called Roque Baños Lopez, and the handful of songs that feature in it are great. You know, Peaches. It finishes on Sway, Dean Martin. You know,
in the early scenes where it's showing you their lifestyle, you get like Henry Mancini.
Yes, I love that. I was wondering who that was.
Also in Big Lebowski, that song.
What song's it?
I don't know what the name is, but you would know it.
Or something like that. That wasn't very good.
That was
I'll play it for you after.
It's nothing like that at all.
I sound like a bread advert. Hovis.
Bread is bread. Today's bread today, you cunty. Yeah, the dialogue, you know, it's sharp, it's biting, it's needling. Like Don Logan, he expletively drills into your brain like a parasite. It actually, for me, it felt a wee bit like if David Mamet had written a gangster film. You know, that real like spitting dialogue, you know, that back and forth. Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah.
But Sexy Beast, it goes well beyond the typical British gangster or crime narrative. There's a considerable amount of depth to it as it explores human nature and how we must live with the consequences of our past. And yeah, this is a common theme in crime films, but I think Sexy Beast goes deeper. It explores it on a more psychological level. Don Logan, he symbolises the past that Gal has tried to leave behind. And the violent persistency of Don symbolises how Gal is still very much haunted by the past. It emphasises that in order to deal with the past, you must face up to it rather than ignore it.
Yeah.
And Don clearly cannot be ignored, you know. Then, spoiler alert here, by the way, be warned, when Gal and the others are forced to kill Don, they revert back to their old ways, and it encapsulates how the past will find a way of catching up with you, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because Gal, he's struggling with these two contrasting identities, and he's forced to revert back to his violent ways.
He's the lover and the fighter.
Despite all these external transformations in his character, the traces of the past are still there.
Yeah. I was getting a real kind of sense of it being almost like Gal and Dawn were kind of like two parts of the same whole, like almost like yin and yang.
Split personality.
All, you know, not to be too fucking Jordan Peterson, but like order and chaos. Although in this conceptualization, order is Gal, which is feminine, and chaos is Dawn, which is masculine. Which is different to the Jordan Peterson idea, but you get the point. And
absolutely, yeah. That's it. So Gal, he spent the last few years trying to reinvent himself in Spain, you know, from
he's literally called Gal.
Yeah. From the violent bad boy criminal to a sun-kissed expat.
Some of those lines he says to Dee, like that one about, was it about rose water, or about, I love you like a rose petal.
I love you like I love you like a leopard loves his mate.
Exactly.
So then, whenever Dawn arrives, he straight up refuses this change in Gal's identity, you know, which charges this tug of war between the past and the present. Yeah. And
I won't let you be happy. Why should I?
and in the end, whenever we find Dawn, he's been buried beneath her swimming pool. You find that Gal, he's learned to live with his past rather than try to erase it. And with this, he can find some sort of peace in that his identity is not fixated on his past actions, but rather he can evolve from that, you know. So before we start looking at the scenes, we're going to talk about Ben Kingsley as Don Logan. It's a fucking phenomenal performance, and Don Logan, he's one of the greatest villains of all time, in my opinion. Don Logan, he's the embodiment of everything Gal wants to forget about his past. He's reminiscent of a demon, you know, like some kind of monster, a powerful beast, actually, in a way. You could almost say Sexy Beast is like a monster film. Don Logan is like Godzilla, you know, wreaking havoc on the population, radiating complete power and control over like all around him. And reportedly, some of the other actors, they were so shocked by the ferocity of Kingsley's performance that they would just forget their lines. And but it turned out they didn't actually have to put much effort into being like acting afraid, because they were genuinely afraid, you know, of the character. And if you go back to what Ray Winston said about not knowing what to expect from Gandhi, the element of shock and surprise, seeing, the dignified Ben Kingsley playing this character, it definitely adds to the experience.
Yeah.
If you displease him, he will strike like a viper. He'll bark, he'll spit. The energy and intensity that goes into this performance, it cannot be stressed enough. He's a rabid dog. A rabid Wolverine. He's like Chris Benoit.
Rabid dog's great. There's a particular part where he's going, yes, 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 yes.
Yep.
And he sounds so pitbull.
He's
And then,
barking.
later on, he's like, no.
No.
That's more like it.
Yeah, no, he is rabid. He's always searching for the insult. He's ready to blow at like the.
He must write them
thing.
down somewhere, like, because he's got such a list
it's
of things he
amazing.
says. He must have a wee
It's
notebook,
poetic, as
all
we
his
said,
best ones.
Yeah.
It's the work of a poet.
It almost reminds me of, at the start of Full Metal Jacket.
Oh,
where you
Gunnery
had the
Sergeant
drill
Hartman.
sergeant. Yeah,
Gunnery Sergeant Hartman.
Yeah. It's like on that level of insult writing.
You're so ugly you could be a modern art masterpiece. What's your name, fat body?
Sir, Leonard Lawrence, sir.
Lawrence what, of Arabia?
Sir, no, sir.
That name sounds like royalty. Are you royalty?
Sir, no, sir.
Do you suck dicks?
Sir, no, sir.
Bullshit, I'll bet you could suck a golf ball through a garden hose.
Sir, no, sir.
I don't like the name Lawrence. Only faggots and sailors are called Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, Dawn is kind of like the friend who'll sabotage your entire life just to keep you by his side. Like, he's so jealous and insecure about Gal. The bit where he's like, you think I'm going to have that? You're sitting in your pool like a fat blob laughing at. You're like, and he's so concerned about how everyone asks about you back home, but you never ask about them. It's such a small.
He's very catty. He's very bitchy nearly. It's he's
but
never fucking asked how we're getting on back home.
he reminds me of if you lived in like a small town and then moved away to the big city.
Yeah.
How people would like potentially treat you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Mr. Big Shot thinks he's $1 million coming
Way
back
off
to
to
the
the big
wee
smoke.
city. Yeah. We're coming back to the wee hometown.
Yeah, that's it,
Yeah, and he feels like they're kind of like getting one over on him while he can't give up the life.
Yeah, one aspect of Dawn's character and the depth of Kingsley's performance is how little we're told about Dawn. But as it turns out, Ben Kingsley, he had delved deep into the character and considered where this personality came from. And he came to the conclusion that Don Logan was abused as a child, and he played the character with this in mind. So we'll consider that when we're looking at some of the scenes. And he's describing playing the character as venting all the anger and tension inside of him, only to be meek as a baby for the rest of the day, sort of while he was off, while he stopped filming,
Kingsley actually said he's based it on his own grandmother. I don't know much about his grandmother, but he said she was racist, fascist, and an anti-Semite. And although you don't get much of those comments from Ben himself, you can see it almost underlying. You
could imagine.
Yeah.
You could imagine him say, for example,
leading an EDL rally.
Yeah. I was like, how do I say this without saying this?
Was it Football Lads Alliance or
North FC?
Protecting the statues.
Yeah.
When I think of Ben Kingsley's grandmother, I just imagine she looks exactly like Ben Kingsley, but an old crone. Roy,
Ben Kingsley with like a haircut that comes down to
I
her
sort of
shoulder.
thought she looks like Yubaba in Spirited Away. Spirited Away. Yeah. I think it's bang on.
Also not very tall.
Yeah, but in an interview with Ben Kingsley, he describes how the narrative is timeless. This film could be set in ancient Greece. It's a story about tribal honor. Those who turn their back on the tribe, the indignation of a tribal member that someone would dare not honor their code.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I read a great little comment. I can't remember where it was, but it basically says how the gods looked down upon the happiest man in Spain and sent unto him the unhappiest man alive. I think that's great because it does. The film, the very first shot of the film is of the sun, and then it cuts to the sun's perspective, and it's almost like a god's eye view looking down at Ray Winston, while he's sitting there being
sunning it up.
I love this, and then he's just up there being like, I'll fucking show you.
Fan-dabby-dozy. And he's like, he like gets a wet gets a wet face towel and like puts it on his balls and is like, oh, like lobstering.
We've all been there.
As you said, like he delivers his lines like it's like Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Full Metal Jacket crossed with Dan Dodson from Storage Wars, the fucking the guy who's fucking
the does the auctions.
Yeah, does the auctions. Yeah.
Speaking a million miles an hour.
But like Kingsley makes Gunnery Sergeant Hartman look like a pussycat compared to Don Logan.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now, we're going to move on. This is the key scene section, but for this, we're going to sort of look at the film in terms of acts, because as we mentioned earlier, the film works sort of like pre-dawn, dawn, post-dawn,
It's a play.
So we're going to talk a bit about Act 1 here. In the opening moments, you meet Gal Dove. He's baking under the hot Spanish sun like a mound of Vaseline and orange budgie smugglers. And like I said, you got like the god's eye view looking down on him, and then that opening bass line of Peaches when it kicks in, like that's just like it's the perfect song to open the film with. Peaches is basically about a pervert on a beach. He's horned out and he's girl watching. And interesting point about the song, when it was released in the late 70s, it was highly controversial because of the sexual content. And the song itself, it was like a middle finger to censorship. And the way it's performed from the point of view of this pervert character, it's taken the piss out of those misogynist macho ideals.
Yeah, because he also says in the song, jumping from perspective to perspective, he's like, liberation for women. That's what I preach, preacher man. So it's like he's showing you one perspective and then showing you another perspective within the same song.
It's almost like he's taking the piss out of himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And just the attitude in that bass line, that
I love it.
It sets you up for the whole thing.
I also love the freeze frame for like the title card when
it's the perfect freeze shot where he's just bringing his fat leg over the chair. You can see his wee dick and the wee dodgy sluggers and all. It's brilliant.
Like if you haven't seen it yet,
sorry, Ray.
Basically, it like it cuts off the screen at the top where his waist is, and the rest of the screen is him like stepping over a sunlight.
The center of focus is his cock.
The center of the focus is like the house behind him almost, and then like the top of the screen is his cock, and then the rest is like
face anyway.
It's an incredible like composition of an image.
But that's it. In this manner, it works to take the piss out of what Gal Dove has become. He's just this vast slug.
Yeah, but it's also taking the piss out of the gangster film in general. Like, how many gangster films have you seen that open with the actors, let's say average-sized penis showing through his
what's that Rolling Stones album? With just the crotch, the jeans, and the halfway down the leg.
Yeah. He's got like a Robert Plant cock.
Two rolled up socks.
What's it called?
Look it up, Rory. Ray Winston, he actually resembles a peach as well in some ways in his appearance.
The pink belly.
Yeah, it's a great use of juxtaposition and irony for the opening, and then the boulder comes like roaring down the hill, which
sticky fingers.
Yeah. And then the boulder comes roaring down the hill, this massive boulder, and like
some foreshadowing, you could say.
It acts as a warning. And then even a wee bit later on, Ray Winston's at the barbecue, and the flames of the barbecue almost try to like attack him. And I thought it felt like some force of nature is trying to like save Gal from a fate worse than death. They're trying to be like, we're trying to help you here, we're trying to kill you here, so you don't have to deal with fucking Don Logan.
I see it as kind of the universe warning him that like danger is coming.
Yeah.
And then you also get anytime he's feeling like danger is coming from a person, he's imagining this kind of a hairy Donnie Darko bunny. But it ties in perfectly to his character that it's always like incredibly tacky. Like he's imagining this child's nightmare creature pointing the massive Uzi at him. It's
why an
ridiculous
Uzi?
thing. I don't
Of all
know.
the weapons.
It's like, but this is what I'm saying. It's like
gangster,
it's
I suppose.
It's
isn't it?
it's like a tacky guy's idea of a huge gun that someone will be pointing at them. You know, like I'm surprised later on whenever he sees Teddy Bass and he gets the same premonition, like danger. It's like it's like an old-fashioned revolver.
It's like a 44 Magnum.
Cannon.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm surprised it's not a 44 Magnum.
Yeah.
It's like like a Navy revolver or
is it?
something. Like
Yeah.
it's like an old
Webley or something like a Webley.
not a Webley, but it's like the American version of that.
Yeah.
Whereas like
Smith and Wesson.
you would expect it to be like a huge. Maybe they couldn't get their hands on one, and that's the best they could do. But you would expect it to be like the Dirty Harry.
Yeah, absolutely.
44 Magnum, because it's like a ridiculous gun that's like way too much for that.
Just don't give it to Alec
Purpose.
Baldwin. Jesus Christ.
Oh no, it was the armorer's daughter or something that he hired to save money or whatever.
Still got shot.
I think it came out that
No, Baldwin apparently sacked all of the crew because they were trying to unionize or something. Don't quote me.
So he starts shooting them.
I'm no. No, but then he hires cheaper people in their place. One of them being a famous armorer's daughter, who obviously
it came out
wasn't
recently
qualified
that she
for
got
it.
the job because of Daddy.
Yeah, exactly. Of course she did.
It doesn't know the difference between a blank and a live eye.
Exactly.
Very little experience.
Yeah.
Insane.
So like,
Yeah.
it's indirectly on Baldwin.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And literally
Yeah.
shot her, but it's still indirectly his fault. Allegedly.
But what Glazer said about filming, Act 1 as if Gal Dove had filmed it, it's clear to see here, the dreamlike qualities, the music, the
There's
editing.
a literal dream sequence.
Yeah. The slow motion, the surrealism. It's made to resemble holiday snaps, simple, curvaceous, and fantastical, especially whenever Gal's wife Dee Dee appears.
Yeah, like, again, going back to the tacky theme, whenever he's like, I love it. And then there's like he blows a smoke ring and it's a big heart. And you're like, oh, come on.
Soppy cat.
Yeah. If you don't understand what's going on, it could look like a really, tacky art choice. But when you realise that that's what he's doing, that's what he's going for, it makes perfect sense.
And
It works perfectly.
Through the smoke.
Dee Dee emerges like Cat Slater. I didn't look it up. I don't know what came first, Cat Slater and EastEnders or Sexy Beast, but it must be around a very similar time.
It's got to be Sexy Beast because I think she's still in EastEnders.
I don't know.
They look so similar.
She's been in it for such a long time, though.
I was watching with my girlfriend's parents. And my girlfriend's mum was like, she's in EastEnders.
They do look so similar, yeah.
I was like, I don't think she is.
She just needs a leopard print coat.
Yeah.
You're not my mother!
Yes, I am!
Well, that's it. Whenever they get together for dinner after all this whole opening sequence, whenever Dawn is mentioned, if you note the body language and the acting, it's tremendous. It's like...
Well, even before... Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
But even before that, when Jackie and H arrive at dinner, Ray Winston's like, whatever it is, leave it outside.
Yeah.
Like thinking that they've been having a fight or whatever. And then they sit down, they're still in a black mood.
Yeah.
And they're like, Don Logan phone.
Yeah, whenever they're told he's coming over, it's like Gal has been told he has a terminal illness.
Yeah.
It's like he's
You're
been
going
told
to the
you
gallows
only
in a
have
week
weeks to live.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't even met Don yet.
Mm-hmm.
And already he's a well-written character. As a viewer, you're already like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
It's going to be scary.
A black cloud descends on the whole scene.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Ray Winston might be the first person to have calamari as a main.
Calamari's great.
It's definitely a starter, though, in my mind.
I don't know if I've ever had it as a main.
Salted chili calamari.
Part of a seafood platter, maybe?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I love the calamari.
Great.
Oh yeah, whenever he's like, Brandy, fucking Brandy. That's all I and he thinks she's just like up for a big night. And he's like, I'll have a brandy. She's like steadying her nerves to tell him that Don Logan's coming tomorrow.
And then when we move on, obviously, to Act 2, which is the arrival of Don, right from the get-go, that fast-paced, intense music when he's storming through the airport. It jolts us out of that dream that we were experiencing.
Out of that holiday.
The whole style and pacing shifts. It's pulsating tension, which is what we've got now.
It goes from this like really soft ambient music to like really abrasive, fast paced.
Like even the way he walks and carries his jacket, it's like the Terminator.
He's like a robot.
Yeah.
He's got a stick up his arse like 3 meters long.
And then he arrives at the villa, and even the way he's sitting there is frightening. He's primed.
On the edge of his seat.
He's poised. He's perched. He's ready to strike like a cobra.
That line, I will in a minute when I have a piss. Just so blunt.
So like in the previous scenes, like yes, they swear and stuff, but it's swearing with like
it's warranted when they do it.
There's something very crass about that.
It's like swearing without being vulgar, if that makes sense. Whereas the first thing he says is like, oh God, I'm sweating like a cunt whenever he gets out of the thing. And it's just like, it's so much like grosser than the other characters as well.
I like to change my shirt. It's sticking to me. I'm sweating like a cunt.
Yeah. But then you get him shift character whenever he's like starting to badger Gal about doing the job.
Preparation. As far as the actual job's concerned, it's a piece of piss. A monkey could do it. That's what I thought of you. Cheers, Don. You're at the Grosvenor. Your name's Roundtree. Like Smarties, like Shaft. If they give you a pull, you're just over here to see some friends, social visit, family, that sort of thing.
You're like, you need to turn this opportunity, yes.
Yeah, well, that's it.
That's a great line.
Gal's trying to lighten the mood by swearing, and he's like, why are you swearing? I'm not swearing. Yeah.
But that's it. Even that the first time he comes into the villa, and then H says he's taking the ladies out, Don immediately cements his power and authority over him, forcing money on H, being like, don't be rude, H, I'm paying for your meal, you know?
Oh, that's very kind of you, Don. Very nice of you. Very nice.
Shut up.
Yeah, it starts even earlier than that because H is walking on eggshells, trying not to offend him.
Yeah.
And he's like, what, am I not invited? Like, searching for the insult. And then he says that and then, like, realizes what he's done. And he's like, no, I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
Like, I just thought you guys would want some time together to talk about things.
Just fear.
Yeah. Like, fucking
Panic.
petrified. Yeah.
So then obviously you have the whole sequence where Don Logan explains the heist to Ray Winston, you know, who's organised it and what's going to go down. And then we move on. There's a great wee scene I love. It's where they go out for a drink. You know, Gal sort of
sitting against the bar.
And his real motive for being there reveals itself.
Yeah, for Jackie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then straight after that, like, he asks him, like, how far is the sea? Or whatever.
Yeah.
And they moved on to the beach, and that scene is fucking brilliant.
Just like, whenever he's telling him about fucking her, and he's like,
During what we was doing, she's tried to stick her finger up my bum. I almost hit the roof, you can imagine. What do you make of that, Gal? What do you make of a woman who want to do that?
Finger up the bum.
Yeah. I don't know what that is in aid of. It's like TMI. You know what I mean? He's like, what do you make of a woman that want to do that? I hit the roof.
It's to make her seem like a dirty bitch. That he hasn't taken an honourable man's wife. He's taken an absolute trollop.
And is it also trying to throw him off the scent? Like, I'm not into her anymore because she did this gross thing that, like, obviously I'm not into because I'm, you know,
she's beneath me. But then he's talking to Ray, who he really thinks that Ray's wife is beneath him.
Yes.
You know, it's that same dynamic, you know.
Of all the birds you could have had,
hundreds.
I love that once they move down to the beach. It's such manipulation and psychological warfare, and it's some of my favourite dialogue, you know. You look like a fat bastard. You know? What do you think this is, Wheel of Fortune?
Fuck off, wanker, you're doing it.
Yeah, you think you can just leave the table? The bit where he's like making fun of his suntan. He's like, you're like a leather man. You can make a suitcase out of you. Hold on.
You're like fucking Eddie Army, you know what I mean? And then obviously they get back to the house, and like the one thing I picked up on, H always looks fucking terrified. Like he can't even look at Don in the eye. He's just sitting there sort of shaking.
There's something very much like in The Sopranos. Sil. There's something very Sil.
He's got a wee bit of Sil.
A bit like a cross between Sil and Polly. He's got a bit of both.
Bruce Springsteen's guitarist.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Steve Van Zandt.
Yes.
Little Steven.
Oh, brilliant. I love Steven Van Zandt. Class. And then, when they go back to the house after that, everyone's sort of back there, and Don starts talking to Jackie like sort of trying to initiate conversation. And he starts talking about how like he worked in an office. You say you got a lovely voice. You know, I worked.
You got a lovely telephone voice. You ever worked in an office? I've worked in an office.
Yeah, he says he worked in an office when he was 17.
I've worked in an office. I was 17. Does that surprise you?
Well, that you were 17.
And then Dee Dee turns and goes, "You were 17."
Yeah.
And the way he turns to Dee Dee is his eyes face completely. He turns to her like this.
Yeah.
Like his eyes don't move. He keeps his eyes straight forward, turns to her and goes, "You've got very nice eyes, Dee Dee. Never noticed them before. They real." And it's the most catty, bitchy line.
But it's
I
like,
love it.
it's so cutting and insulting. Like, he, you know, because she's like taking the piss out of him, and she's like, "What, you being 17?"
Yeah.
Which is a hilarious little barb to throw at him.
Oh, God, aye.
But that's the last thing you want to do to Don Logan.
The fury in his eyes
Yeah,
when he turns to look.
That thing he does with his eyes is really difficult. When you see when you did it there, your eyes jolted every time. Like
his
your
eyes
went,
do not move at all.
Whereas his eyes stayed still on the
It's as if
turn.
he's staring at his eyes and he goes just like that to turn her, and it's terrifying.
It's
amazing the way he does it.
It's like inhuman.
Yeah. Because like, if it happened, you would look at them first and then turn your head.
Yeah.
You know? It's like Michael Keaton in Batman.
They must have kept something for him to focus on as he turned, because otherwise your eyes do. They do a jolt, they do a bounce.
I've done that before. Doing extras work, they'd have the camera coming along and there'd be someone behind it holding up like an object or their hand or something. Be like, "Look at my hand, don't look at the camera." So like, I'm guessing they probably either did that or he's insane. Like, I don't know. There's no other option.
And there's another interesting scene after that where it's Dawn, he's in the bathroom and he's taking a piss. And at one point, even like he just pisses on the floor.
He's pissing with his hands on his hips, shirtless.
Pisses on the floor, doesn't flush.
Doesn't flush. And then he has this really sick conversation with himself.
He's schizophrenic.
Yeah, well, you see it.
It seems to reveal that he's schizophrenic. So he's like having a conversation with himself.
He's creating scenarios in his head, and like,
he's like relaying what happened.
He's having a full conversation with himself.
He's having a full conversation with himself.
Slabbering himself. He's really self-deprecating, and he's
He said that. "I'll sort him out for you," or whatever.
Fucking big mouth Dawn.
Better to keep stum.
Stum fucking stum.
He's like berating himself for telling him. He's berating himself for telling Gal about fancying Jackie or sleeping with Jackie because he's given the game away, and then that's where he turns and becomes aggressive because he's like, "Shit, I've given the game away. I need to like double down on the job thing."
And then obviously he goes and boots Ray Winston in the head,
Yeah,
gets him out of bed.
That lump of shit said that. Expect you to take that, swallow that. What, do you think you're a cunt? I'll sort him out for you, Charlotte. It's not a problem.
And then, like, when he gets up, he sort of starts trying to be, like, all nicey nice to him again, but it's in a very depraved way. You know, "I love you, gal." You know, lovable gal, lovable lammox, lovable lamp, you know.
It's so manipulative.
But then
it's like an abusive husband
but then he
after,
immediately
like, slapping his wife about.
And he immediately starts playing into that whole, like, Dee Dee being a porn star, the Wednesday wank, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they still watch their films.
The Maltese pornographer as a place.
First Tuesday of every month. The Wednesday wank, they call it. Yeah, they're in big demand nowadays. Those old Super 16, she's very popular. Oh, yeah, it's very popular. You seen them?
I've seen them.
Dearie me, what a stain on your life, eh? All the parcel in the world couldn't shift it. She's disgusting.
They meet on a Tuesday.
Wednesday wank, call it.
Like, the shittest banter known to man.
That's it. Ray Winston, like Gal, like in this scene, he looks like a victim of an abusive relationship. He's broken, empty, and helpless. Ray Winston's incredible in the film. I think Ben Kingsley overshadows so much of it. You sort of forget about Ray Winston,
but his performance is fantastic.
Stunning in it. Yeah. And then after that, the action it moves into the kitchen, which is another excellent sequence. So the conversation in the kitchen between Gal and Dawn, it originally took place in the living room. But Jonathan Glazer decided that a more domestic and less formal setting would be more effective for the scene. And it's that whole part where, you know, he's sort of like, "Do it." You know, he's just like, "I'm tired.
I've had enough of this crime and punishment bollocks. I'm happy here."
You know, he's just
Yeah,
he's had enough.
He's like hanging on to the kitchen counter.
Kicks
in
the
his
cabinet. No.
yeah.
I won't let you be happy. Wash it on.
Yeah.
He really unloads on him.
I don't even see Dawn for a lot of that scene. It's only been done with one shot, not all the different angles.
Well, originally it's sort of like mid shot between the two, and then whenever Ray sort of challenges him and mentions the whole Jackie thing, he's like, "What do you say?"
Yeah.
To click on. Then the cinematic language here is brilliant because it goes from a mid shot, and then the camera moves out of the room as if it's peering around the corner of the wall, because it's like a third of the screen is the wall. It's as if the camera is afraid. It's been like, oh shit, I'm getting out of here. It's incredible cinematic language. The camera wants to keep a distance. Mm-hmm. It's peering around like a frightened child watching his parents fight.
No.
Yes, Roundtree.
No.
Yes, Grosvenor.
No, Don.
Friday.
I won't be there.
You will.
No, Don.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like domestic abuse.
And Ray Winston is like standing there in his. It's almost
sounds like a kimono.
It's like a woman. It's like a woman's kimono. Like it's really
like
cut
James
off.
Bond with her, Sean Connery with her.
But that just adds to the theme that we've been talking about throughout, where it's almost like domestic abuse.
And that shot, the shot where the camera moves back and Dawn goes crazy and ends up kicking the cabinets, it was done in one take. Glazer just decided no other coverage was necessary. You know, that was enough.
It's one of the best scenes in the film.
Yeah.
I come over here for professional reasons, nothing else. On a professional mission. I've got to get a team together, I've got to handpick a team. And I had you in mind for that team. But quite frankly, your attitude appalls me. It's not what you're saying. It's all the stuff you're not saying. Insinuendos. I would like to leave now, this minute, please. Get me a taxi.
And then you move on to Dawn at the airport and on the plane. And as we were talking about it earlier, he's in the airport. He can't sit down. You know, he can't stay still. He's furious. The camera does that the dolly zoom effect while he's in the airport, or like the Hitchcock. It's like the camera's tracking while zooming at the same time. So
vertigo.
It creates that illusion of the world closing in around them in the background. It's done in like Goodfellas, Jaws, Vertigo, and things like that. But yeah, what about Don's excuse for being kicked off the plane?
Oh my god, it's incredible. Also, like, just to preface that, whenever he's on the plane and the guy behind him is like, why don't you just put the cigarette out? Like the Spanish guy. And he's like, what if I cut off your hands and use them as an ashtray? Like,
stab it out in your eyeball.
Yeah. Agreeable. And then whenever he's getting thrown off the plane, he turns around to all the other passengers who are staring in horror at him, and he's like, I hope this crashes.
And then when he's being like, when they come to question him, it almost feels like you feel like his character is drawing on repressed memories.
Yeah, exactly.
And that part, his immediate assumption is to jump on sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what does that say about his character?
It's also, obviously, it's not a funny topic at all, but the way he approaches it is hilarious. He like turns to the wall. He's like, yes, it's very serious. Like, I've been here for 5 hours. And he like turns to like so that he's perpendicular to the wall. So the guy has to like come across. So it's like we're having a private conversation, even though the guards are still standing right there in front of him. But he like turns to the wall, and then he's like, have you ever been sexually assaulted? And the guy's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's what I said. Here's me, put my bag up in the cupboard. Next thing you know, I feel hands on me. Someone's touched me. Touched my front bottom. I can't believe it. I've gone all cold.
But I think that gave away a bit of character.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's obviously subconsciously drawing on some sort of previous, trauma or memory there. As Ben Kingsley said, he played the character as if he was abused, as a child, and it's clear to see there.
He touched my front bottom.
The front bottom. Following that, we move on to the third act, which is post-dawn, wherein Ray Winston returns to miserable, rainy London. Like, as you said, the rain in London.
The wettest rain.
It's the wettest rain you've ever seen. Yeah. And, like, I found, like, the aesthetics of London when he arrives, it's like industrial, it's claustrophobic, and it's that, as I said earlier, that weird, it's like 70s futuristic, the way 70s films would have portrayed, it's almost like the way A Clockwork Orange would have portrayed the future of London. This weird abrasive architecture. And then when he's meeting with all the other gangsters, you have these frenzied close-ups, the hyenas at the table, and the fear whenever Teddy actually confronts Gal in the restaurant, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you have the heist itself, and like we said earlier, Ben Kingsley, he described the film as being tribal, and even the heist itself, it feels quite tribal. They look like ancient gladiators with spears. Under the water, you know what I mean?
All in their
they're all
Y
stripped
fronts,
down to their Y fronts, and they've got these big, huge drills that look like spears. It plays into that whole idea.
It's like 300 almost the way they depict the Spartans.
I'll have that.
Some of the stuff that's in the lockboxes I find really interesting.
There's
pictures. There's like a metal whippet. There's snuff pictures of like a woman being murdered or something. And then there's the urn, and the guy's like shaking it, trying to figure out what it is, and opens it, and all the ashes spill out into the water.
Because obviously it's the first urn he's ever seen. Like, he's made it through how many years of life and not having fucking...
We should probably explain the reason why there's water in the bank vault is that Teddy Bass is like a genius bank robber, and he realizes once he tours the vault that next door there's a steam bath. So he realizes, like, shit, we can drill through the wall underwater next door and get right into that vault.
It's clever. They show you at one point in a shop when they're out in the street, you see the sign for steam baths right next door.
Where there's a will and there is a fucking will, there's a way.
There's a way. And there is a fucking way.
Final act, more towards the end in itself. The ending being so bright and everything being back to normal. It's sort of almost...
when he finally gets back to sunny Spain.
It's got a sort of all's well and ends well feeling to it.
Yeah.
Without any of the trauma that they've been through. Like that whole scene when Dawn is eventually murdered and Jackie's standing over him with the gun in her hand. And
No, Dee Dee.
Jackie's H's wife.
Yeah. But they all start kicking him at one point. Whenever after Dee Dee shoots him, then they all just like start getting the boot into him. But like
H is hesitant at that point. H is still standing away. And
he's still terrified
He's
of him.
standing like a naughty schoolboy, like in the corner.
He's still afraid that Dom will do something to him, even though he's
been shot.
Like, he thinks, he can still, get me here,
But then he overcomes that whenever they're all like kicking. Even like whenever Jackie starts kicking him, he's like, okay, fine, and goes over and. Dawn
tells him,
covered in blood, is like, I fucked Jackie.
fucked her.
And then H is like, well, I'm gonna fuck you now, and drops like a big boulder on his head or whatever.
That's exactly
it. Like a toolbox.
It's a toolbox.
Yeah,
I was wondering if it was a box or like a weird shaped boulder.
It seemed like a toolbox to me anyway.
The barbecue? Was it a barbecue?
I loved whenever he like smashes that down, and then it smash cuts to them breaking through the wall into the bank vault.
Brilliant.
Love that.
Yeah. And that whole final sequence actually with Teddy Bass is so intense as well. Whenever he's like, he's got his case with him at the bar. He's like, where are you going? He's like, I'll drive you.
Yeah, and he's like, no, I'll get a taxi, please.
And you're convinced that that's him. He's done for, and
because you don't know whether he knows what's happened, or if he thinks he's lying, or if he's trying to like get it out of him, or if he just like suspects that something has happened. And then whenever he's driving him, they make a stop on the way to tie up the loose end of Harry, the chairman of Imperial Emblat, who they've just robbed. And it's so funny whenever they like arrive at his house, and he's like, Teddy, it's 5 a.m. And he's like, I'm sorry, something terrible has come up. Can you fix a drink for my friend here? And Gal's like, like with his hunched shoulders and his raincoat.
But incredibly British about all.
Yeah. Keeping a stiff upper lip, not saying
even the
anything.
orgy itself, there's something incredibly British about it. It's not like eyes wide shut, like depravity. It's like all very sitting about. He's drinking a cup of tea.
Yeah. And I think Teddy goes from suspecting him to knowing after he like blows Harry's brains out all over the drinks cabinet, and then turns to him and asks him again about Dawn, and Gal's like, like he's gonna kill me.
Well, in the end he seems to not really care.
That's what he says, like, if I gave a solitary fuck about him, Meaning, like...
Unless he pays him a tenner in the end, rather than fucking...
no, but like...
Have you got change?
Reading between the lines, he's like, if I cared about Don at all, you'd be dead.
Yeah.
But because I don't give a fuck, probably because he's an annoying cunt or whatever, like, I'll let it slide, but you're not getting paid anything. Because
he gets a tenner.
Yeah. But then whenever he's like getting it, he's like, oh, I've only got 20s. Have you got change? But then you get that final shot of Gal standing at the bus stop, kind of dejected, but also relieved. Like, fuck, I've got away with it. I'm getting out of here with my life. And then he pulls out the little ring or earrings or whatever for Dee. Like the gaudiest fuck.
Yeah,
like,
first trophy wife.
Yeah, you could imagine Queen Elizabeth having like 40 pairs of those attached to her. It's like a giant ruby surrounded by diamonds or whatever.
It's a film that only benefits from repeated viewings. You know.
Because you're gonna miss things probably.
Even stuff like the small bits of imagery, like but obvious ones, like the patched up hearts, like after the boulders hit it and it's all been mended and Kenzie's buried underneath, and it's the two hearts like Dee Dee and Gal, and they've been through this traumatic experience and it's mended, but it's still there. You can see it. You know,
that was what we were talking about earlier. But no, the film, it's a masterclass in subversion, and the venom of Don Logan, it'll linger long after viewing. I'll say this. I sort of mentioned it earlier as well. Like the more you watch it, the more you really can appreciate Ray Winston's performance. It's a real masterclass in paranoia, remorse, regret, and even shame.
Yeah.
He really exudes these qualities. And
you see a range in an actor that you didn't know had that.
Yeah,
range,
100%. He's a fantastic actor. I really, really like him. And also, whenever we leave Spain in the film and return to London, the film could have fallen flat on its face, but it still manages to make the interactions between, Gal and Teddy Bass incredibly engaging and unnerving, even after we've just been subjected to Don Logan. And I was sort of thinking about, like, what you could compare the film to in terms of style, like certain aspects of it. And
it's so unique.
Yeah, but there are some similarities I picked up on. Like, I picked up one was Sleuth. That game, the game of cat and mouse, that real conflict between the two characters.
Olivier and Kane.
Yeah, Olivier,
it's a great film.
Phenomenal. We'll do an episode on that.
Oh my
goodness.
goodness.
Fucking class. But it's also that limited setting, it's Don and
one
Gal,
house.
It's just that in Spain, the limited setting of the house, And then when we talked about the aesthetics of London, as I mentioned, that like weird futuristic vibe, it nearly reminded me of 2001, A Space Odyssey, in ways, like the interiors of the spaceships, the architecture and all that. It was very odd. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it was just something that popped in my head.
The dreariness of it almost.
Yeah. But it's like that dated futurism, you know what I mean? It was very strange.
It must have looked modern at the time.
Yeah.
Whereas now you get that old sort of not quite Star Trek, but that quite
And in terms of a
fax machine.
Yeah. In terms of a character, the only other one I could sort of think of was and this is in comparison to Don Logan, was Ralph Fiennes in Bruges.
I bet he based that character on him.
It was like a watered down version of Don. Like he still was very aggressive. And,
even the sort of the style of comedy in Bruges and it's actually based in that darkness that and it's obviously very much still very British gangster going on. It's got a very similar feel.
I was also reminded a lot of Ocean's 11, wherein the heist itself is a complete afterthought. It's irrelevant to in Ocean's 11 it's all about the character dynamic and interaction between the 11 characters, and the heist is sort of irrelevant at the end of the day, and it's the same here.
You get a much richer film for it. I think if you had a different director, like say, I don't know, for the sake of argument, say like a Guy Ritchie or someone like that, and it was more kind of like procedural and they spent way more time on the heist and stuff, it would be boring.
You could imagine it, like
even though it seems like two people sitting at a table arguing or whatever might not make for like compelling cinema, but it's so much richer, it's so much more interesting, and it's so funny.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, we'll move on here a wee bit. There has this year, it's just came out, it's a prequel TV series based on Sexy Beast.
Have you seen any of it?
No.
Seen the trailer?
I watched the trailer and I think I saw enough.
I was deeply concerned based only on like the title card on Prime. No, I didn't watch it.
Like,
I didn't need to watch it. I knew I wouldn't like it.
So basically, it's a prequel to the film, and it's set back whenever Gal was
And Dee Dee's
working
still a
with
porn
them.
star.
It's basically about Gal, Don Logan, and all when they were working together back in London. But when you watch the trailer, it's just like different characters rehashing lines from the film.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course, that's
like
what's
there's a shot, there's a part where a woman like says word for word one of Don Logan's lines in the film, and you're like,
what?
I've seen it. I don't need to see it.
I hate shit like that.
I don't know.
I think it's Prime. Well, it's on Prime anyway. But like, I hate whenever they try and like reboot something.
It's like we mentioned last week. It's that wink to the camera. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, remember that?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's like, yes,
yeah.
I fucking remember. I saw the fucking film.
Yeah.
Something
Like,
I watched
come up with
recently,
something original for fuck's sake. Like there's probably so many scripts out there that aren't given a chance nowadays because people want to go with the safe bet. Like the fucking Suits who are picking what gets made are like, oh, that's made money before, run that again. People will love it. Just give them a few lines. Like we're fucking pigs going to the trough or whatever. You know?
On another note altogether, something I watched recently that was almost had a similar sort of feeling, like the family dynamic that was going on there. That RTE did it. I think Braun Productions made it. Kin. I watched it not expecting much. One that the wife had recommended, and it was really, 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 really good. You get
it's a good cast.
Yeah, Peter
Baelish. Call me Peter.
Is playing, especially the first series. Oh, he's very good. So yes, he's very good.
Kieran Hines. He was the dad in Belfast.
He's a
great actor. He was
he's played
Game of Thrones. He was the leader of the Wildlings.
He's played this guy Eamon Cunningham. He's played another like mob boss leader. But the sort of family dynamic, the way there's so much riding on Dee Dee and Jackie there, like as almost as power figures themselves. You know, there's very much you get Latin kin. It's more Irish gangster rather than British gangster, but there's definitely a similar feeling. You get the tackiness of the sort of that sort of family.
We should also bring up that hopefully Jonathan Glazer, the director, will get more recognition, and hopefully people will go back and watch this film after seeing or hearing about Zone of Interest. We don't want to give away too much about it, but it's fantastic. The way he captures people's inner lives and motivations and the way people speak and relate to each other is phenomenal.
So before we wrap up here, me and Tom, we are going to go see Dune Part 2 tomorrow. We are sitting second row IMAX.
Yeah, one of our friends who's never been to the IMAX, we allowed to book the tickets, and I was concerned about this because I was worried that this might happen, so I posted into our WhatsApp group being like, where did you book it? Because the last time we went,
we were fifth or sixth row.
We were like in the middle for Napoleon, and it was too close. Yeah. So I was like, you want to be further back than you realize. And he was like, oh, the only one. Yeah. He was like, the only one that I could get 10 together was in the second row. Yeah. We were like, so we're gonna need neck braces the next day.
We were like sixth row, and you would be literally sitting looking left to right, to see the different characters in the film, and we're 4 rows further forward. So yeah, that's gonna be intense. But I wanted to briefly talk about part 1 because the other day I made a claim that horrified Tom
I was disgusted.
To his very core. I made some heinous accusations and thought I might explain myself. That'll be a good time to explain myself.
He said that he hated the first one, which is obviously ridiculous.
Hate was a strong word. I think it was very early in the morning.
I hadn't had my coffee yet. I was feeling a wee bit angry.
Hate was a strong word. I did watch it again on Wednesday night there, and I will acknowledge I had been a wee bit harsh. However, I do have some issues with the film that I simply cannot overlook, and I thought it'd be a good time to sort of explain them to you.
Let's hash this out.
The biggest one for me is, in my opinion, Paul Atreides is just not a compelling protagonist. I'll explain why. So, as a character, he seems to lack any flaws. So from the get-go, he's savvy, he's capable, he's intelligent, and throughout the film, he just always makes the right choices. He's too perfect as a character, which for me, it makes him unrelatable. You know, everything's just all too easy for him. And then there's the fact that the character is also the son of a duke. He's privileged. He's like a little prince, which makes me not really care about any of the struggles he might have compared to the less privileged in the film. I just feel he lacks any real character development. I feel the Paul we meet at the start of the film is very much the same Paul we meet at the end of the film. He just remains the same throughout. And we gradually learn of how amazing his abilities are as time goes on. Like the knife fight at the end, the big climax, he just wipes the floor with the guy. And it's very, very boring. Then you have the whole idea of Paul's future being predestined. You know, they go hard on this whole chosen one trope, which I feel is as a trope, it's gotten a bit tiresome, you know. And as a result of this, I found it just killed the narrative tension. It didn't matter what choices he made as a character. The fate of the character is decided, and that's it. So I just couldn't care.
But
what
the fate of the character
you know?
Isn't decided. So like, obviously, I've read the book, so
that is a major difference.
If you've read the book, you'll enjoy it way more, I find. But I think
you're
it's
already
still
invested in the characters, having read the book.
Not so much. Like, I'm invested in the concepts. So like, I think it's though I see the story slightly differently, because obviously Frank Herbert, who wrote the book, is drawing on like Middle Eastern influences and like Islam and stuff like that. So Paul Atreides is like the Messiah in Islam. I think they call the Messiah Mahdi.
Yeah.
And that's they literally call him that.
Yeah.
And the reason why he is so adept, I do think you do get progression in his abilities, because at the start he hasn't mastered the voice, which is this like really important thing that his mother has been teaching him.
Yeah.
His mother is part of this like, they're kind of like witches, like the Bene Gesserit. But the reason why he's so adept is because they've been like crossbreeding bloodlines to try and create this like chosen one. So it's almost like they're trying to like force the hand of God and create this perfect person. So like the reason why he's so adept at everything and like learns everything so quickly, and like why he picks up the fighting so easily and stuff, because you see him fighting with Gurney, like one of his father's soldiers.
Josh Brolin,
unreal actor, by the way.
I love Josh.
You see him, fighting with a grown man there, and he's nearly got it. Like he's nearly nailed the fighting, and he like pins him, and he's like, I've like got you.
Yeah,
but then Brolin's like, but I've also got you. But then you see the progression when it really matters. He like steps it up.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say about him, his journey isn't destined, but it's more, he's destined to do one of two things. And it's kind of like, if you're given this privileged position where you can do anything, you're like effectively omnipotent. What are you going to choose to do? Are you either going to do good and like try and make everyone else's life better? Or are you going to go for like the vision that he has of himself, where he becomes this intergalactic fascist dictator, bathing the universe in blood in the name of his father, who was like unjustly murdered by the emperor and like a rival house.
I feel like his character could do with some more flaws, just to make him a bit more.
I totally understand
relatable, and character aside, I understand it's part one, but rather than a complete film that stands on its own 2 feet, it felt a wee bit to me like a 2.5 hour pilot for a TV show. It's all set up. It's all building, establishing the world building is excellent in the film, and it does a good job of that. For me, it felt like it was missing a third act.
I get that.
It sets up everything, but as there's other films you could say. Let's take Fellowship of the Ring for example. It stands on its own 2 feet as its own film. You could
argue that the reason why that worked is because they like transplanted the start of the second book, because the first Lord of the Rings book finishes very much, and the second Lord of the Rings book finishes very much like the first Dune movie.
Yeah, wasn't Shelob in the Two Towers book as well?
I think Shelob. Yeah, Shelob comes. It's in Return of the King film.
They arrive there, and I think the second book ends with them splitting up and Sam looking for Frodo.
Yeah,
the difficult thing in the books is the characters are very split as well. Remember, so you have Sam and Frodo's journey is completely separate too.
Oh, yeah, it's like separate sections.
And you're not reading them concurrently. You're reading them one after another.
Yeah. So the point I'm making is like they take the opening story from the second Lord of the Rings book and make it the finale of the first film.
Yeah.
So like I could understand the decision to do that, but maybe the filmmaker of Dune,
Denis Villeneuve.
yes, maybe he was like, this is the best place to end it. It would have, in my opinion, made a better like HBO series or something.
8 hour-long episodes.
You wouldn't have to worry about cutting anything. And like maybe they won't. Maybe they'll make like a bunch of 3 hour long movies that are incredible.
Yeah.
And like I'm hoping that the first one being set up will be fine for the second one, because
I'm excited for part 2.
The second one is meant to be really good.
I'm really excited for it,
So
because I'm expecting bigger everything.
Yeah.
You know, bigger, the sandworms, the action.
Yeah,
you know, really excited for it. But that aside, you know, I did enjoy the world building, the production design. It's great music, and I also noticed that was definitely my favorite viewing of it. I enjoyed the parallels with the Roman Empire in the narrative as well, you know, which I only really picked up on it. You know that part where Paul, he's out having a wee walk and they've got the palm trees.
Yeah.
They've been transported to the planet. And it reminded me of the famous stone pine trees in Rome, which they became such an iconic part of Rome as a city, but they were taken from North Africa. You know, they're not native to Rome, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we're going to get so deep into talking about Dune here at the end of the episode. Like, we're going to have to cut this down. But, like, whenever Paul is asking the guy who's tending to them, and he's like, each palm tree uses up the water of 6 men in one day on a planet where water is the most precious resource. But I loved there's some things that I really love about it, where whenever the leader of the Fremen, who are like effectively like, you could think of them as like the Afghans or something, or like they're almost, it's almost like, what if the Taliban were the good guys, and then America, who are coming to like steal the spice/oil, are like the bad guys.
Yeah,
you know, I thought that was a really interesting.
Oh, definitely.
I thought it was a really like interesting subversion on Western values and how we consider ourselves to be the good guys, but then
you create evil through evil. You know?
This movie puts you in the perspective of the other. So like, I find it amazing that at the moment in the UK, where there's this big panic about Islam, the biggest movie out is a movie about like an intergalactic holy jihad, where the Muslims are the good guys. I think that's hilarious.
But yeah, it was, you know, things like that, like, you know, the houses in Dune resembling the patrician classes of the Roman Republic, aristocrats with political influence. You know, there's plenty of political intrigue and betrayal in the film, and
I think that's why I like it so much.
Yeah, and you've got that imperial power structure
right up your street, Tom.
But yeah, no, I'm excited for part 2. And,
because it's what it really is a study of the Middle East colonialism and like political intrigue more than anything.
Yeah. My issues were literally just with the character, and narrative. And
I totally get that.
It weighed too heavily on me. And like, I think once I sort of tried to be like, right, let's not get too bogged down by that. Let's try and enjoy it. I did. I managed to sort of enjoy it, you know.
I know.
But I'm excited to see it, because I would like to see part 1 and part 2 as a whole piece, as opposed to the 2 separate films, you know.
That's probably how it's meant to be viewed. It's probably one of those ones where it'll make more sense to be seen as, you know, like David Lynch would want you to watch it like a 7 hour 7 hour long movie.
Well, we will find out tomorrow, and I'm keen to see if they'll have those sandworm fleshlights for our popcorn. But guys, this has been another great episode. Thank you for joining us again, and next time you will have us back in the 1970s. We'll be doing Jaws, but for now it's ta-da!
Thanks, guys.
Is that going to be your sign-off every week?
I think so, yeah. I didn't actually mean to do it, but you know.
Ta-da!
Anyway, ta-da, ta-da!
You didn't get me and Tom say goodbye.
That's all right. What I'm gonna do is just like fade it out with us like criticizing his sign off.
That was great, guys. Hold on.